Have you noticed that you're more tired than you used to be even on days when you haven't done much at all? Or that you're waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom telling yourself it's just part of getting older? What if I told you those small, easily dismissed changes could be the earliest warning signs that your kidneys are quietly failing right now? Without pain, without drama, and without giving you a second chance once the damage is done. Every year in the United States, hundreds of thousands of people hear the words chronic kidney disease far later than they should have, and most of them say the same thing: I wish I had known sooner. The terrifying reality is that kidney failure doesn't begin with a crisis. It begins with whispers, subtle fatigue, slight swelling changes in urine signals so mild that they blend into everyday life until one day you're sitting in a dialysis chair, wondering how it progressed so far without you noticing. I'm Dr. Mark Ellis, and as a physician, I've seen firsthand how preventable kidney damage turns into life-altering disease simply because the early signs were misunderstood or ignored. But here's the good news. Those whispers your body is sending are not random, and they are not meaningless. They are measurable, explainable, and most importantly, actionable if you catch them in time. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the earliest warning signs your kidneys send long before a diagnosis ever appears on a chart, explain what's happening inside your body at a physiological level, and show you exactly how to recognize the difference between normal aging and something that demands immediate attention. Because the difference between preserving your kidney function for decades and facing a medical crisis often comes down to whether you understand these signs today, not years from now. Let's start with the sign almost everyone has seen, and almost everyone ignores: foamy urine. Not the quick bubbles that disappear in seconds, but thick, persistent foam that lingers like soap. That is not random. That is protein leaking through filters that were never meant to leak. Your kidneys contain nearly 1 million microscopic filtering units called nephrons, and when they're healthy, they keep essential proteins like albumin inside your bloodstream. But when those filters are damaged from high blood pressure, diabetes, chronic inflammation, or years of silent strain, they begin to lose their precision. Protein slips through. And here's the part most people don't realize: protein in the urine isn't just a symptom, it accelerates kidney damage by triggering inflammation inside the tubules themselves. It becomes a vicious cycle. I once treated a 52-year-old man who told me he'd noticed bubbles in his urine for over a year. He assumed it was dehydration. He felt fine. No pain, no dramatic symptoms. But when we tested him, his albumin levels were severely elevated, an early marker of chronic kidney disease that had already been progressing quietly. According to national health data in the US, nearly 90% of people with early kidney disease don't even know they have it. And one of the most common overlooked early indicators: persistent protein in the urine. If you notice consistent foaming most days, especially combined with fatigue or swelling, that's not something to brush off, it's something to test. A simple urine dipstick and blood panel can reveal what your body has been trying to say all along. But knowing the sign alone isn't enough, because when protein starts leaking, your body doesn't just lose molecules. It starts retaining something far more visible, and that's where the next warning sign becomes impossible to ignore. When protein begins leaking through damaged kidney filters, the consequences don't stay microscopic for long. They start to show up in the mirror and at your ankles. The next warning sign is swelling, especially around the feet, ankles, and sometimes even the hands. At first, it's subtle. Your socks leave deeper marks. Your shoes feel tighter at night. You press your finger against your shin, and the indentation lingers a second too long. That's not just a long day. That's fluid escaping from your blood vessels into surrounding tissue because your kidneys are no longer maintaining balance. I remember a patient in her early 60s who told me she thought her swelling was just summer heat. She elevated her legs. She cut back on salt for a few days, but the swelling kept returning and spreading. When we ran her labs, her albumin was low, and her kidney filtration rate had already declined significantly. Here's the science: albumin in your bloodstream creates oncotic pressure, which keeps fluid inside your vessels. When protein is lost in urine, that pressure drops. At the same time, struggling kidneys retain sodium, and water follows sodium. According to CDC data, fluid retention is one of the earliest visible markers of declining kidney function, yet it's frequently dismissed. If you notice persistent swelling that doesn't resolve overnight, that's not something to normalize, it's something to investigate. Simple blood work and urine testing can uncover the root cause before it escalates. But swelling isn't just about fluid. It's often the first outward sign that your body's internal oxygen delivery system may already be under strain, and that's where the next symptom becomes far more dangerous. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another factor even more alarming that most people completely overlook. Fatigue is where kidney decline becomes personal, because this isn't the kind of tired you fix with a weekend off or a stronger cup of coffee. This is the heavy, bone-deep exhaustion that slowly rewrites your daily life without you even realizing it. If swelling was the visible warning, fatigue is the invisible one, and it often signals something far more systemic happening beneath the surface. I once treated a 58-year-old man who kept telling himself he was just getting older. He used to walk 3 miles every morning. Then it became 1 mile, then just around the block. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't depressed. His blood work told the real story: declining kidney function and anemia. Here's why that matters. Your kidneys don't just filter waste, they produce erythropoietin, or EPO, the hormone that tells your bone marrow to make red blood cells. When kidney function drops, EPO drops. Fewer red blood cells means less oxygen delivered to your brain and muscles. According to research published in the New England Journal of Medicine, CKD-related anemia is one of the most common yet under-recognized complications of early kidney disease. The result: you feel drained doing things that used to feel effortless. You get short of breath climbing stairs. You struggle to focus. And because it develops gradually, you adapt to it. You normalize it. You blame stress, age, sleep. But fatigue linked to kidney disease has a pattern. It's persistent, progressive, and disproportionate to your activity level. If this sounds familiar, ask yourself honestly, have you noticed your stamina shrinking over the past year? Have simple tasks started to feel strangely overwhelming? If so, that's not something to brush aside, it's something to test. A simple, complete blood count and kidney panel can reveal whether anemia and filtration decline are silently progressing. But as serious as fatigue is, it still isn't the symptom that most disrupts people's lives, because what happens next doesn't just drain your energy, it steals your sleep. And once your nights are interrupted, the damage compounds in ways most people never expect. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another factor even more disruptive that many people completely overlook. If fatigue drains your days, nocturia steals your nights. And once your sleep is broken, everything spirals faster. Waking up once at night after 50 common, waking 3, 4, even 5 times, producing large amounts of urine each time. That's not just aging. That's your kidneys losing one of their most sophisticated abilities: concentration. Healthy kidneys follow a circadian rhythm. At night, your body releases anti-diuretic hormone, ADH, signaling the kidneys to reabsorb water and produce smaller volumes of concentrated urine so you can sleep uninterrupted. When kidney tubules become damaged, they stop responding properly to that signal. The result: dilute urine production continues all night long. Your bladder fills repeatedly. You wake up exhausted, not because you drank too much water, but because your kidneys can't regulate fluid balance the way they once did. I had a patient who thought his nighttime urination was prostate-related. That's a common assumption. But his prostate exam was normal. His labs, however, showed early-stage chronic kidney disease. Research published in the American Journal of Kidney Diseases has consistently identified nocturia as an early and often overlooked marker of declining kidney function, especially when it progresses over months. Here's the pattern to watch: increasing frequency, larger nighttime volumes, and a recent shift in sleep disruption. When kidneys struggle to clear excess fluid and waste during the day, they catch up at night. And every interrupted sleep cycle raises blood pressure, increases stress hormones, and accelerates cardiovascular strain. The damage compounds. Let me ask you something directly. How many times did you wake up last night? And has that number quietly increased over the past year? If so, that's worth investigating, not ignoring. But sleep disruption isn't the only place fluid imbalance shows up. Because when you lie down at night, gravity no longer pulls fluid to your ankles, it redistributes. And where that fluid collects next can be even more revealing. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another visible sign that many people dismiss, and it often appears first thing in the morning. That fluid doesn't just disappear when you lie down, it redistributes. And one of the first places it reveals itself is somewhere most people notice, but rarely question: your eyes. Waking up with puffy eyes, especially when it's symmetrical and persistent, is not just a cosmetic issue. It can be an early clinical signal that your kidneys are losing control of fluid and protein balance. The skin around your eyes is some of the thinnest and most delicate tissue in your entire body. When albumin levels fall because protein is leaking into your urine, the oncotic pressure that normally keeps fluid inside blood vessels weakens. Overnight, while your horizontal gravity no longer pulls fluid into your ankles, it spreads evenly, and the loose connective tissue around your eyes becomes the perfect reservoir. That's why the swelling is often most noticeable first thing in the morning. I once evaluated a woman in her late 40s who kept switching eye creams, convinced it was just aging. But her labs told a different story: proteinuria, declining filtration rate, and low serum albumin. Studies in nephrology journals consistently describe periorbital edema as a visible manifestation of early kidney dysfunction, particularly when accompanied by protein loss. The key distinction: kidney-related puffiness is usually bilateral, improves slightly as the day progresses, and appears alongside other subtle symptoms: fatigue, swelling, foamy urine. Let me ask you something simple. When you look in the mirror in the morning, do you see temporary puffiness or a pattern that's been quietly worsening? Because patterns matter, and when multiple small signs line up, they're rarely coincidence. But fluid imbalance isn't the only system your kidneys regulate. When filtration declines further, it doesn't just affect water and protein, it disrupts your body's electrical stability. And when electrolytes fall out of balance, the consequences move from visible swelling to something far more uncomfortable and unpredictable. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because the next symptom often strikes without warning, and it can feel completely unrelated to your kidneys at first. When your kidneys start losing control of electrolytes, the warning doesn't show up on a lab report. First, it shows up in your muscles. Sudden cramps in the middle of the night, a sharp tightening in your calves while you're resting, fingers locking up unexpectedly. These aren't just low potassium moments or dehydration from a long walk. When kidney function declines, your body's entire electrical stability begins to shift. Your kidneys are responsible for maintaining precise levels of sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and phosphate, the minerals that control nerve signaling and muscle contraction. When those levels drift even slightly out of range, muscles can become hyperexcitable or unable to relax properly. Low calcium increases nerve sensitivity. Low magnesium prevents muscle relaxation. Potassium imbalance disrupts the electrical impulses that coordinate contraction. Studies in nephrology literature consistently show that electrolyte dysregulation is one of the most common causes of recurrent muscle cramps in early and moderate chronic kidney disease. I once treated a man who thought his nightly leg cramps were just part of getting older. He tried stretching. He tried supplements. Nothing worked. When we finally tested his kidney function, his electrolyte panel told the real story. Early-stage kidney impairment was quietly destabilizing his internal balance. The cramps weren't random. They were physiological. Here's what makes kidney-related cramps different. They often occur at rest, especially at night, and they're more frequent and more intense than typical exercise cramps. Sometimes they're accompanied by weakness, numbness, or even irregular heartbeats, because the same electrolytes controlling your muscles also regulate your heart. So ask yourself, have your cramps become more frequent, more intense, harder to explain? Because if your kidneys are struggling to maintain balance, your muscles may be the first to protest. But electrolyte imbalance doesn't just affect muscles. As waste products begin to accumulate in the bloodstream, the effects move outward to your skin. And the final symptom we're about to discuss is the one most people never connect to kidney health at all. Yet it can be one of the most distressing signs of advanced dysfunction. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because the last signal is often the one that patients ignore the longest. And then we come to the symptom almost nobody connects to: their kidneys itching. Not a rash, not a bug bite, not dry winter skin. I'm talking about persistent, unexplained whole-body itching that doesn't respond to moisturizers or antihistamines and seems to get worse at night. It sounds unrelated. It feels dermatologic. But in many cases, it's metabolic. As kidney function declines, waste products that should be filtered out of your bloodstream begin to accumulate. Some of these uremic toxins deposit in the skin, triggering inflammatory pathways and nerve irritation. At the same time, failing kidneys struggle to regulate calcium and phosphate balance, leading to rising parathyroid hormone levels, a hormonal shift strongly associated with pruritus in chronic kidney disease. Research published in Kidney International has documented uremic pruritus as one of the most distressing complications of advanced kidney dysfunction, affecting sleep, mood, and overall quality of life. I once cared for a patient who thought her itching was an allergy. She changed soaps. She eliminated foods. She even replaced her mattress. Nothing helped. Her labs revealed advanced kidney disease. The itching wasn't external. It was systemic. And that's what makes this symptom so deceptive. There may be no visible rash at all. Kidney-related itching often presents as widespread, symmetrical, and worse at night. It may coexist with dry skin, but it doesn't fully resolve with hydration alone. And because it develops gradually, people adapt. They normalize it, they scratch and move on. But when itching persists without explanation, especially alongside fatigue, swelling, nocturia, or foamy urine, it's not just a skin issue, it's a signal. Let me ask you directly, have you experienced unexplained itching that lingers for weeks or months? Have you treated the surface without investigating the source? Because when the kidneys lose filtration control, the body looks for other ways to express distress, and the skin becomes the messenger. None of these 7 symptoms alone confirms kidney failure, but together they form a pattern, a constellation of early warning signs that too many people dismiss until it's too late. And here's the truth, the difference between early intervention and late-stage dialysis is often awareness. But knowing the signs is only powerful if you act on them, because once kidney damage becomes advanced, your options narrow dramatically. If you've stayed with me to this point, that tells me something important: you care about your health, and that already puts you ahead of most people. Because the real tragedy of kidney disease is not that it exists, it's that it's ignored. The signs are there, the signals are there, but too often they're dismissed until the only options left are dialysis or transplant. And I don't want that future for you. Here's what I encourage you to do starting today. If you recognize even 1 or 2 of these warning signs: persistent foamy urine, unexplained swelling, worsening fatigue, frequent nighttime urination, puffy eyes, muscle cramps, or ongoing itching, don't panic, but don't ignore them either. Schedule a simple blood test. Ask for a kidney panel. Check your creatinine, your eGFR, your urine protein. If you have diabetes, high blood pressure, or a family history of kidney disease, be even more proactive. Early detection doesn't just slow kidney decline, it can preserve your quality of life for decades. Your kidneys work for you 24 hours a day. The least we can do is pay attention when they whisper before they start to scream. If this video helped you understand something you hadn't connected before, save it. You may need to revisit these signs later or share them with someone you love. And make sure you subscribe to this channel, because every week I break down complex medical topics into clear, practical guidance you can actually use to protect your health, especially your kidneys, before it's too late. You are not powerless in this. Knowledge gives you leverage. Early action gives you options. And small changes made consistently can dramatically alter the trajectory of your health. Take these signals seriously, act early, and remember, protecting your kidneys today is an investment in the years of energy independence and life you want tomorrow.